Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So if you've been with us for the last several deep dives, we've been systematically breaking down the three-stage strategy.
Step by step.
Exactly. And today, we've reached the end of that road.
Right.
Our mission now is, well, it's synthesis. We're going to take all that material, all the pieces, and pull them together into one single framework.
Right. We're moving from looking at the individual gears to looking at the finished machine.
The entire architecture.
And this is where we zoom out. We're focusing less on the what you do and more on the philosophical core, the thinking behind it all.
The mindset, really. Now, before we jump in, I want to be perfectly clear about a few things. First, my name is Tamir Khaham, and I am the originator of the three-stage strategy for building financial independence.
And that's important context for this entire discussion.
It is. And this episode concludes the podcast series that describes that strategy. We've already covered all 13 steps and the 3 stages in a lot of detail over the previous deep dives.
So we're not going to repeat all of that today.
No, not at all. Today is all about synthesis and perspective, reinforcing the foundation that all those steps actually stand on.
And that foundation, it really requires a total shift in how you even define success in the first place.
Absolutely. So to set the scene, let's start with the quote that, for me, just frames this entire thing. Here it is, word for word.
Okay.
Financial freedom is not $1 million in the bank. It's the ability to choose how you live your life. Financial freedom is the lifestyle we choose, not just the number in the account.
That quote is the philosophical linchpin, isn't it?
It is.
It just immediately forces you to separate two completely different ideas: getting wealthy and building financial independence. And we have to start there because confusing those two is maybe the single biggest threat to long-term success.
It's why the material consistently hammers on this one core idea. First, financial independence, then wealth.
Right.
People hear financial and they just automatically think bigger numbers, maximization. But this strategy flips that on its head.
So let's define that. When we look at the source material, wealth is what? It's a snapshot.
A snapshot. It's a number on a page. At one moment in time, it's a result. It's static.
But financial independence, or FI, that's dynamic.
FI is the process. It's the mechanism. It's the system you build that's designed to sustain itself, to keep generating income and choice, even when things go wrong.
And this brings us back to your background, because you didn't come from Wall Street. You were a senior systems engineer.
Right. I retired at 60.
So when you look at FI through that lens, an engineer's lens of architecture, planning, design, you're not trying to make a speculative bet.
Not at all. You're trying to engineer a system that is robust against failure.
Yes.
My goal is never to be the richest guy.
Yeah.
It was to build a system that guaranteed control over my time, mental peace, and freedom from dependency. A system where money works for me.
And that system delivers stability and choice. That's the real product.
That's the real product. So what happens when people skip that? When they chase
Yeah.
the wealth number without the FI system underneath it?
We see it all the time. Someone gets a huge windfall, but they haven't built the mechanism to manage it.
They're maximizing a short-term result, but there's no long-term infrastructure. They might hit a big wealth number.
But they don't have the FI system. So when the market turns or they're spending balloons, the whole thing is just fragile.
Their peace of mind is tied to the daily stock price, not to the resilience of their income.
It's the difference between having a full tank of gas and having a reliable self-fueling engine.
That's the perfect analogy. We're aiming to build the engine.
Always the engine.
And once you commit to building that engine, you realize why the sequence of the strategy is, well, it's non-negotiable. It's a single integrated system.
And it's structured by 3 principles that have to happen in order. You can't just skip ahead.
No, you can't. The journey has to start with the first principle: identity before action.
The internal part.
Yeah.
The prerequisite. You can't sustainably change your financial state until you change how you see yourself.
For me, that turning point around age 45, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it wasn't about learning a new stock tip. It was a fundamental change in my consciousness.
The move from one identity to another.
Yes, the move from being a survivor to an asset owner, a responsible manager of capital.
Well, let's unpack that for a second. What does a survivor identity look like with money?
A survivor is constantly reactive. Money comes in, and it's immediately spent to solve a current problem or reward a past effort.
So saving feels like a punishment.
Exactly. And their financial life is governed by external pressure. The bills, keeping up appearances, relieving stress by buying something. They are trading their time for money, and time is always running out.
Whereas the asset owner
The asset owner sees every dollar as a unit of capital. something to be deployed, protected, optimized.
They're proactive.
Totally proactive. They get the goal isn't just to have money, it's to own systems that make money without their time. That psychological anchor is everything. Without it, you end up like those lottery winners who go right back to zero.
Because their internal identity was still set to survivor.
Precisely. And that commitment, that identity shift, it leads you right into the second principle, which is purely operational. Resilience before growth.
This is stage 2, and this is where so many ambitious people get it wrong. They want to rush straight to growth, to stage 3.
Chasing the big returns, the aggressive investments, but they haven't built the foundation.
The metaphor you use is so good here. You have to plug the holes in the financial bucket first.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to establish order, stability, and control before you try to pour more income in the top. If you've got toxic high-interest debt, that's a huge hole.
Or no emergency fund.
Right, a massive structural vulnerability. Any returns you make in stage 3 are just going to leak right out through the holes in stage 2.
And stage 2 becomes this mandatory shock absorber for the whole system.
You're building anti-fragility. So when a crisis hits, and a job loss, a medical issue, a market crash, the system is protected. You don't have to sell your assets at a loss just to survive.
It's the non-negotiable step. Without it, the whole thing just collapses under pressure.
And then, once that identity is locked in and the resilient foundation is built, we get to the third principle.
Which is that wealth is a consequence.
It's a consequence. It stops being this desperate, aggressive hunt for the biggest return.
It just becomes the natural, inevitable outcome of running a good system.
Yes. You're freed from that emotional roller coaster of chasing numbers because you trust the system to produce results over time. You stop trying to make wealth happen. You just focus on running the system smoothly.
And this whole approach, this systematic way of thinking, it has a huge impact on your day-to-day life.
It has to.
It reinforces that core idea that financial freedom is a lifestyle. It's a way of living by choice.
It's just conscious living. Once you adopt that asset owner identity, you realize pretty quickly that simplicity creates freedom. It creates leverage.
So conscious lifestyle design starts to replace status-driven consumption.
Why would you spend a huge amount of capital to signal your status to strangers when that same capital can be deployed into your income-producing system?
It's not about being cheap, it's about being efficient. Optimizing your lifestyle so you need less capital to live, which just speeds up the whole journey.
And every dollar you don't spend on status is another dollar you can put to work in the system.
And that asset owner identity, it dictates all the actions in stage 3, the growth stage.
It does. You're looking to expand and replicate income sources that are not dependent on your time. For me, the practical result of building that strong stage 2 foundation was being able to acquire yielding assets.
Like the co-owned rental property.
Exactly. That property was the first real building block of my stage 3 system because it generated income whether I was at work or not.
Proof that the sequence works. The stability created the capacity to buy it, and the identity gave you the discipline to manage it right.
Now, we've talked about the 11 sequential steps, but the sources point out one more piece, a parallel step that runs alongside the entire journey.
The commitment to continuous learning.
Yes. If FI is a system you're engineering to last for decades, it has to be adaptable.
Of course. Markets change, technology changes. The system you built in 2024 might be obsolete by 2044 if you're not paying attention.
The work never stops. The process of adapting and updating your knowledge base has to be constant.
And the material gives a great example of this. Even after you retired, starting at age 67, you didn't stop learning.
No, I kept studying. I was learning about digital assets, things like YouTube channels, Instagram, Facebook. Not necessarily to go build them all myself, but to understand.
To understand how income sources were evolving beyond the traditional assets?
Right, to make sure the whole architecture stayed robust and adaptable for the future. That adaptability is longevity. And, at this point, it's important to pause and clarify something essential. This episode is not about financial techniques and not about optimization or investing. I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. What we are doing here is conceptual understanding, not personal recommendations. Just because this approach worked for the creator of this strategy does not mean it will work for you. There are no guarantees. Responsibility for decisions and outcomes always remains with the listener.
So to pull it all together, this final synthesis, what the 3-stage strategy really provides is a long-term, responsible, and structured journey.
It is. The commitment is deep. It requires a real internal change, but the payoff is absolute freedom of choice.
which is a dividend that's way bigger than just a number in an account.
So with that, we can now officially state that this deep dive concludes the podcast series that presents the three-stage strategy.
And to be clear, if we do release future deep dives, they won't continue the step-by-step sequence.
No, the sequence is done. Future episodes would expand and deepen perspectives on financial independence, exploring specific themes that build on this foundation.
The takeaway for you, the listener, is really the power of that first internal shift.
The decision to change your financial identity from a reactive survivor, someone whose life is dictated by circumstances, to a proactive, strategic capital manager. That is the single most significant financial decision you will ever make.
It's the one that determines if the wealth you build is temporary or if it's truly built to last.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Yeah.
If your financial actions right now are a reflection of your identity, what evidence do you see that tells you you're operating as the asset owner you want to be?
That's a powerful question.
And if you want to keep learning and exploring these ideas, we invite you to connect with the YouTube channel, The Golden Path to Financial Independence. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.